Welcome to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Here's your host, Mary Guida.
Welcome back to 517 In Your Business. It's time for our monthly conversation with Eric Hanna, who we all know is an employee benefits consultant with Brown & Brown. You've made it your mission, Eric, to share your playbook and to let everybody know everything that they need to know to help them make some big decisions. So it's always good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Always great to be here. And I'm excited to pick up where we left off last month, too.
Yes, let's get right into it. So last month, we talked about the 3 pillars that all business executives can take to improve their benefits. So where do we start?
Yeah, that's right. And just as a quick recap and for context, those pillars are transparency, ownership, and aligned incentives. And those are all concepts that any business leader can take and apply to their benefits. And from my perspective, the natural first stop is transparency. Mary, when I was in decision maker roles or administrative roles, it often frustrated me that at benefits renewal time, I didn't have enough information or enough time to make thoughtful decisions. So kind of a, Wizard of Oz, man behind the curtain was pulling the levers that I couldn't see or prepare for. And like we've talked about, it's been a huge part of my mission, to your point earlier, and working with employers to shine the light. And that to me is the basics of transparency. How are vendors getting paid and what's driving the changes in price that we see year to year?
Let's talk more about the word transparency, because that gets thrown around a lot in business. I mean, I use it.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean to you?
I commonly refer to the Simon Sinek quote, and I think about this a lot. And he says that transparency doesn't mean sharing every detail. It means providing the context for the decisions we make.
I love that so much. It's a really good distinction. So it's not about dumping data on someone.
Yeah, exactly. And, nobody needs, in the context of benefits and medical plan design, nobody needs every line item of a medical plan in a claims report. What they need is enough context to understand what's actually happening with their plan and why. And that's the whole game.
Right. And I assume, and I think most people assume, their health plan is already transparent. You get a bill, you see a number, you rinse and repeat until that contract renewal.
Yeah, and we've talked enough about this. You know that from my perspective, that's the problem, right? Seeing a number is not the same thing as understanding what's driving it.
Yeah, say more on that.
So actually on LinkedIn, I recently posted an edition of Benefits Blitz, my new newsletter, and that it was titled, You Can't Manage What You Can't See. And that's the line I keep coming back to. So most employers know their premium went up, but not necessarily why it went up. And they don't know which claims drove it, which members potentially drove it, and so where the money actually went. They just see, this is what I pay today, and this is what I'm paying at that contract renewal.
Right. So it's not that the information doesn't really exist. It's just that no one's providing that to them.
That's right. And a lot of employers don't even know to ask. There are commonly some reporting that helps validate the renewal quite often, but it's not necessarily actionable or contextual.
It feels a little bit like, we're moving towards a soundbite, like you can't manage what you can't see.
Yeah, I've used that a few times, and I think it puts it into context.
So it sounds like from your prior experience that leaders are sort of put into that, what do they call it, flight or freeze? So you're in a position of sort of paralysis, not enough of the right information at the right time in the right way. Am I on the right track with that?
Oh, yeah, right on the right track, 100%. So not to pull another quote, but another one immediately comes to mind. I actually heard this reel of the actor Christoph Waltz, and actually he was quoting or summarizing Voltaire. And I'm not going to claim that I read Voltaire, so I'll attribute it to Christoph Waltz. But I did see the reel, and the quote was, "Doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd."
Reminds me of the old definition of insanity, saying, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right?
Right. And I think people hear that and assume it's an argument for staying uncertain, right?
Right.
And it's not. It's the opposite. Most business leaders and executives are operating with a certain false certainty. They assume their plan is fine because maybe the renewal came in close to last year's number, or that the increase is just, quote unquote medical trend, and there's nothing to see here, and we try to just keep moving. And that's not certainty. Real visibility creates actual certainty, the kind that you can act on.
Right. So a lot of us, I think we like to live and we feel safe in that land of denial almost. So if visibility is the starting point, what does an employer actually look at? Because, see your numbers is a little bit vague.
Yeah, I agree. So there are 5 categories that really tell the story. And then from there, we can drill down to figure out what is the underlying issue and action plan. But as a starter, we want to see monthly claims against budget. Are we tracking the way that we were projected to track through underwriting of our plan and our costs on budget? What are the high cost individual claims or claimants? Like, what are those one-off or outliers that may be kind of driving a bigger share of the cost than the rest of the population? What does pharmacy utilization look like? Chronic condition trends. And finally, and maybe one of the more impactful ones, is site of care, meaning where are people getting treated or receiving care or having procedures done?
Yeah, so that's pretty specific.
Yeah, it has to be. And here's a stat that surprises, almost every employer I share it with. But statistically speaking, in any population, roughly 10% of your covered members are driving 60 to 80% of the claims.
Wow, 10%.
10%. So if you don't know what's driving the cost of that 10%, then as a business leader, you may be flying blind on the majority of the spend, and any actions can then be focused and specifically tailored and customized to support that 10% cost driver.
That makes so much sense. And it changes how I think about a renewal conversation completely. So if I'm a business owner and I don't know that number, what am I even negotiating?
Yeah, sometimes, when we push back on the carrier and we get a couple of percent points, we feel like we kind of won. And in the end, that's just negotiating a rate increase. It's not really negotiating a strategy. And so there's a pretty distinct difference between being armed with the data to be able to do the math versus
Yeah.
just pushing back on a percent number.
So once an employer has that visibility, then what's the next step? Because knowing the number doesn't fix everything.
Yeah, that's the next piece. So once you see it, you can act on it, right? You can't manage what you can't see. Well, now that you can see it, now there's some programs and activities and action plans that could be put in place to help impact not only the number and the cost, but oftentimes also the experience of the employees. We can do both. And the employers who are actually moving the needles are the ones that I'd call are winning right now. They're not lucky. They're just better prepared.
When you say better prepared, what do you mean specifically?
They're walking into renewal already holding the information. They've already seen that trend, that monthly claims report. They know where they've been trending all year long, and they're holding the data well before they walk into that renewal meeting, in the third quarter, maybe even fourth quarter before their plan renews. So they're not receiving the information in the moment where it's too late to actually, act or, reset their strategy. That becomes
Right.
kind of late in the game. So once they're evaluating something they already understand, that's really the difference between playing off or playing defense and calling your own plays.
Absolutely. I really like that. So it's really not about having more access than other employers. It's about doing something with the access that you already have or maybe that you could have, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the plan itself just starts to look different too. Most employers treat their health plan like an annual expense, write the check and kind of hope for the best. The ones pulling ahead treat it like a business asset, something that can be managed, influenced, and measured.
So that's more of a mindset shift more than a tactical one.
It is. And it starts with the data. So you can't have that mindset if you don't have the visibility underneath it.
Right. Okay, so one last thing, because I know you'll want to land this. So
Mhm.
if every employer situation is different, sizes, industries, claims history, how do you avoid turning this into, a one size fits all advice?
Well, yeah, the starting point is there really isn't that one size fits all advice. And that's really the whole point. And I think of it like a scouting report, back to the sports, context. So before a game, you're not just learning the opponent exists, you're studying their tendencies, what they run on first down, how they adjust when they're behind. And a health plan works that way. The visibility tells you what the defense actually looks like, those claim patterns, the high cost activity, types of facilities being accessed, what are the tendencies within your employee population. So once you can see that, you can start calling adjustments instead of just reacting to whatever gets thrown at you, typically pretty late in the game.
Transparency isn't necessarily the finish line, but it's what makes the next decision a possibility.
That's it. You nailed it.
I really like this. This is a good conversation. Where should people go if they actually want to look at their own numbers?
Yeah, like I've mentioned before, I recently launched a newsletter called Benefits Blitz. It lives on LinkedIn. We're about our fifth edition in, and there's a guide in there that's called 6 Questions Every Employer Should Be Able to Answer About Their Plan. And if someone can't answer them, then it might be worth another conversation.
Yeah, I think that is definitely smart advice. I appreciate you being here. A little birdie told me you're going to be in an upcoming 517 Business Magazine. So we look forward to finding out more about you there as well. But I encourage everyone to check out your LinkedIn because you're doing a big service, honestly, to the
Uh,
community with the level of information you provide.
mhm.
So I really thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I heard that rumor too. There might be some photos coming up soon, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really excited about that. Yeah.
All right, Eric, thank you so much and can't wait to see that magazine.
Thanks for listening to the 517 In Your Business podcast. Get to know local businesses better by reading 517 Business Magazine. Get your subscription at 517mag.com/subscribe.